Hello and welcome to the London United Filmmaker Podcast. My name is Greg Randolph. Today I'm speaking with Peter Borak. Peter is a London Film School student. We talk about growing up between Slovenia and Luxembourg. We also talk about his favorite filmmaker, Miloš Forman. We also talk a little bit about his upcoming grad film, Paradise Found. It's a great conversation. Enjoy! So, Peter Borak, I want to welcome you to the London United Filmmaker Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm good, yeah, my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here and chat film and everything related, yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Well, we've worked together in a lot of previous capacities. You were script supervisor on Different Faces, my grad film, which we're just kind of getting out there. We're going to be doing a private screening pretty soon, and so I'm grateful for your help on that. And then also, we've worked together on a variety of projects, I feel like here and there. But we met at London Film School, and it's just I feel like we've always kind of gotten along, and you've got such an enthusiasm for film, so it's really nice to have you here to speak kind of about your history with film and what has led you to study in London and make films in London, and just to hear about the whole process of what you've been up to lately. So I'd like to start with what got you into filmmaking? What was it early on for you, whether it was when you were a child or whenever, that really got you excited to not only just like watch and kind of dig in, but like start to make films as well?
Well, that was a lovely introduction. Thank you again. I'd like to believe that I was always like a arts-oriented kid. Growing up, I was that kid who like always like doodled, in my notebook, or I just loved I loved the arts, and English was another one for me. I loved just writing, whether it was in elementary school. I kind of discovered that maybe like this is kind of like the avenue that I felt like I could tap into the creativity, and I just really enjoyed writing like short prose or later on poetry. And that kind of, I guess, shaped and like molded my kind of pathway later on. Obviously, as I grew up, and I guess you could call it like a bid to appease my parents' wishes, I still want to do something creative. But when it came to thinking of that career path, there was a time where I thought of pursuing architecture, because it was combining those two worlds where, like, yes, it's creative, but it's also kind of like a steady job, unlike filmmaking. But sorry to stray away from that. But I guess what really set things in motion for me was, memory's a little fuzzy, but I think I was in my like preteen years, and I saw Miloš Forman's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I always talk about the profound impact that motion picture had on me, because it really changed my view on the medium as a whole. Because before that, even though I couldn't really rationalize it, I was still a child, I could kind of separate this is a schlocky blockbuster and this is serious high art, This can communicate to me, like I could resonate with the characters on a deeper level. There's rich subtext in those stories and in the character arcs. So and also I could equate it to then like some novels I was reading, that there's that overlap. So that's when I learned to kind of separate this is pure entertainment, and then this is kind of quote unquote like high art. So I think that was the film that really convinced me that this is something I would likely would like to pursue. As a potential career. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can I ask you who introduced you to that film?
I think it was my mother. Yeah, she's quite the cinephile, and so I'm very grateful to her. In general, like I think with her, the arts and she's more like art conscious, art minded. Not to say that my father isn't, but there's quite some like polarity there. So I think she really influenced me, not just with getting me into film, but yeah, getting me into reading and getting to write some poetry, because she wrote some really nice poetry and got some collections published. So I think with her, I'm very grateful to her for kind of ushering me into this medium of film, and kind of helping foster that love for cinema in me.
That's really nice. Yeah, that sounds like she was very helpful there in kind of getting you on your way. My question is, where did you grow up? Where were you learning about cinema like this and watching these films? I think that's also an interesting aspect of kind of what shapes your filmmaking now.
So in that respect, I don't know, like perhaps in this kind of setting where we are now in London and at the London Film School, maybe it wasn't such an unorthodox upbringing, but I did live kind of split between my home country, which is Slovakia, and primarily raised around Bratislava, and I split my time between there and Luxembourg. My mother, she works as a translator for the European Commission, so we kind of traveled. So like I said, I split my time there. Primary school, kindergarten and like early primary school I did in Luxembourg, and then pretty much most of my primary school education going into secondary education was Slovakia, and then back again Luxembourg, and higher education studies here. So I always like to use that analogy that I'm a bit of a migrating swallow in that sense, like nothing's really a home for me. But so in between there, I was, to pass time when I could, I was watching films and series, and yeah,
Cool.
That's kind of that.
Cool. What was it? I'm curious. I don't know much about Luxembourg. I've never been. Could you tell me a little bit about what it was like living there? Even if it was sporadically. I don't know. I just feel like, Slovakia as well. Like, were there films that reached out to you, or was there any? What was? Just to talk a little bit more about that. I'd love to hear more.
So yeah, like I guess I should have elaborated. Like the majority of my youth, let's call it, I did spend in Luxembourg, even though it was split. But those kind of, let's call them prime years of like cinema that like influenced my taste and stuff, that was in Luxembourg. I'm not very familiar with their contemporary scene. Obviously, it's a very small country. There's I'm fortunate to know some talented people there that work in this film and creative sphere, but I'm not really familiar with the scene there. And likewise in Slovakia, the contemporary films that get produced are quite high quality. They're often made in collaboration with neighboring countries, so there's obviously a bit of an influx from Hungary, Poland, Ukraine in terms of obviously acquiring the funding and the outreach too. So, but I primarily grew up on the retro, like vintage cinema, and that really was the cinema I grew up with, and that informed my kind of knowledge and really again permeated deeper and expanded my love for the art. I obviously mentioned Miloš Forman. Even though the first film I watched was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that led me kind of back to his older stuff he did before he fled Czechoslovakia in the 60s. And those are just fantastic films that hold up even today. There isn't this quality where, it's the filmmaking, like the actual technicalities are antiquated. Yes, obviously they're of their time, but the messages and the narratives are very strong and are applicable, to us. So that was really, again, like that's the cinema I grew up on. Were primarily influenced like old cinema, on old Czechoslovak new wave. Like I said, primarily Forman, Jan Nemec, Juraj Herz, and a lot. Yeah, that was that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, your Instagram tag I think is Miloš Forman wannabe or
Yes.
yeah. So it's interesting to hear you talk about it a little bit because I know you have deep admiration for him.
Yeah, very much so. He's the director that really, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but he's the director that really, made me take film more seriously. And he's the first kind of name I associated, like, the classic directors.
Sure.
Well, obviously he's up there with, your Scorseses and Spielbergs, and those are real high caliber names. But to me, there's something about his like directing style which is, very, how should I articulate this, like human.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see some behind the scenes or even just like the testimonies by the actors and crew that worked with him, he was just like an awesome, cool guy. Had a very laid back vibe, but when it came to breaking bread, he obviously could run the set as well. So he has this quality which I don't think is really. I don't think it's absent from contemporary directors that we have now, because there's immense quality. Also, there's a lot of them on the market now, but and in that regard, he could be somewhat of an outlier even for his time, or at least that's like how I like to think about it. But yeah, I guess enough of my blathering there.
Let's fast forward a little bit because I wanted to ask you, presently what you're working on. I know you're leading up to your grad film. I'd love for you to speak a little bit about that and just kind of maybe give us like a little bit of perspective of just what you're currently up to, filmmaking wise and otherwise, whatever kind of you think.
Yeah. Well, I'd say I'm at that stage where I'm still kind of like. I wouldn't say like grasping for opportunities, but I've really kind of settled into the cinematography side of or the production side, but mainly in terms of cinematography. So I have this newfound appreciation for lighting and camera. Not that I didn't before, but the London Film School and even now, obviously outside, I've gotten opportunities in these departments, and sorry, I flipped my way.
Yeah, no, yeah. You seem really busy.
Yeah. Sorry, can we?
Yeah,
I'll just pause.
It's all good.
Where is going off with that?
No. I think it's really just that you're. It seems like you're very busy at the moment. It seems like you were just gaffing, a short film that was independent of LFS.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've taken to the camera department as well. And maybe just talking a little bit about your experiences, what you've kind of gleaned. Imagine before school where you hadn't had the experience of kind of working on a bigger team in the cinematography or lighting department.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you've kind of why have you gravitated to those roles? And just I know it's when you're at school it's quite like not gelatinous, but it's kind of like you are trying to test out a lot of different roles, and film is just multifaceted in that way, especially the social aspect of it as well. So you're kind of juggling a lot of different kind of technical things as well as social things, and I'm just curious, you seem to have gravitated to it quite well. It seems like you're having fun on your stories. You really seem to be enjoying the experience. So I don't know, I kind of wanted to just hear kind of, when you look at an Instagram story, it's just like it's such a small tip off to what might be happening, or what the feeling is wherever you might be. So just to have you kind of speak into it a little bit, even if it's just someone you've enjoyed working with, like you were talking about, like Alice Gagari maybe working on the grad film and how that was kind of precipitated from different faces, or even Zidjian. Zidjian was first AC for Different Faces, and he potentially will DP the project. He was just texting you the other day. So I don't know, yeah, just if you maybe can just sum some of that up.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I can give you the whole spiel. So, yeah, I think that was great. Yeah, like you said, there are certain roles you gravitate towards. I was just always naturally drawn to camera and lighting. I come from a sort of corporate filmmaking background,
Sure.
But as you're aware, that's like a completely different world to narrative filmmaking. Just the way sets are run and everything is completely different. So.
And I was coming from like broadcast editing, before that. So that's another completely different world. total crossovers, and I'm sure influence what we do now. You know what I mean? It's just in the back of our heads, and we use those experiences to our advantage. But yeah.
100%, yeah. No, I'm very grateful for that background as well, because it did inform my practice going forward. But I do take lighting way more seriously now, because
Me too. Gaffing is a big thing for me. You know,
Yeah.
the writing and directing and producing I all enjoy very much. I feel like that's what I'm best at, but I do love to light a set.
for sure, yeah. And I mean, then that transferring to DPing, you know, on a larger scale, I just think, you know, before LFS, like when I was working in corporate filmmaking, the way it was just, you know, for example, a studio was lit, you know, everything was kind of fixed. So you do get kind of like a flat image. Here, you're kind of like, once you get into, you know, film school and get opportunities to lighting and camera departments, you do think of, you start to think of, okay, how am I going to compose this shot? How am I going to create depth, you know? And so, you know...
And what's the style of the film? You
100%.
Know, are we talking about a surreal film? Are we talking about a science fiction film?
Yeah.
Are we talking about a noir? You know, I mean, are we talking black and white? Are we talking color? Like, the list goes on.
And then your tools, you know, your lights, your everything just kind of becomes the proverbial kind of painter's palette, right? And you get to...
Lenses, camera, you know, that's
100%.
it's all, it's that's the fun of it. I think that's probably, I imagine, I mean, I dove into lighting more than I did camera at school, but I would say that going into camera and lighting, even with the background of wanting to direct, you know, like you will be for your grad film, having a really strong sense of camera and lighting can really boost your directorial, I think, skills and the type of image you're going for in the end. You know?
No, I definitely, that's a great point. I share that sentiment, because I'm always the one who says, like, you know, I think it's good to have some kind of grasp on all the different HOD roles, or roles in general, because they do inform your practice. If you want to go into writing and directing your own shorts, you know, I think it's good to, like you said, like, know about lights, know about camera, even if it's, you know, your knowledge is fractional, but it still really, really helps the end product, I think. Because if you like that, sure, there are, you know, directing prodigies who just come from, you know, they're talented writers and know how to direct. But I do think, I mean, look at all the big examples. Sir Ridley Scott, you know, production designer, right?
Totally.
Fincher, like camera assistant before. So I think all these transferable skills inform the greater practice of directing, if someone wants to go into that, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So it's great. It sounds like that's been a really nice experience for you. I'm wondering, you know, you're leading up to your grad film now. Could you talk about that? Just talk about the story, if you'd be so kind. Talk about, you know, the fears and the parts of excitement of it, and just it would be great to hear more about how the process has been since we last spoke a couple months ago.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I pretty much have like you know. It is a de facto like final draft, but you never know. These things always, you know, can change on a whim. But I'm quite content with it now, and it is de facto locked. The story is we spoke about it before, but it's like a retrofuturistic, like Kaufman-esque narrative about this shady beauty clinic in this like alternate reality 1970s world, where the clinic provides a service which is too good to be true. And then, you know, you have two kind of smaller stories running in parallel. One is a kind of vulnerable person being taken advantage of this potential scheme, and the other is you know, a investigative journalist trying to kind of get to the root of this and write an expose on the clinic. And I think that's as far as I can go. I think I probably already gave away too much of the plot, but I do want to, you know, I just was inspired by a lot of films, you know, classic and contemporary too. So I'm thinking the visual references will be quite specific, but I also obviously want my my DP to have the creative freedom and to do what they want. But I'm thinking, I mean, there's a lot. Like I'm thinking a little bit of, if we're talking contemporary, like Good Time by the Safdies. And the story initially, because obviously it evolved, but when I was first writing it, I did draw some inspiration from the John Frankenheimer film Seconds from 1966, I believe. It could be 65. Just this kind of have that existentialist angle baked in there as well. But yeah,
that's a great reference, man. That's a great reference.
I definitely want it to be, not pure drama, but the feel I would like to elicit is, well, broadly speaking, a dramedy. I always reference this film because it's one of my favorites, in my top 10 for sure. But Uri Hertz's film The Cremator, from again, could be 68 or 69, I'm not sure now with the distribution, but technically fully released in the 90s because it was heavily censored in communist Czechoslovakia because of its themes and kind of the meta-narrative, which kind of obviously poked fun at the regime in many ways. So yeah, like I said, there's a ton of references, and I'm sure we'll just whittle it down once we get to the heavy shot pre-production.
Listing, exactly, shot listing. And when you think about crewing for something like this, because a director at this at LFS, it's you're given a small budget, you're sent out there to rent gear and to find a producer and DP and production designer and all these different roles. Do you have any philosophy behind that? Because it is kind of the director and the producer that hand in hand kind of bring these people together, and sometimes even it's because these are mostly unpaid projects, we're doing as grad films. Sometimes the director has to wear a lot of different hats in order to kind of get the film, and has to be a leader, you know what I mean? Can you talk a little bit about that? Can you talk about like what goes through your mind, what you're looking for from a DP? Is it someone who's just enthusiastic to you about the film? Maybe talk a little bit about that kind of, or I mean, it's kind of natural, I assume, like meeting people and deciding to work together, but I'd love to hear it from you, kind of your take on that.
Sure. Well, I definitely think it's paramount, to kind of broker a good relationship between the HODs you want to onboard. I was very fortunate to work in a small capacity on your grad film, and I met a lot of talented filmmakers there, and it was almost this feeling like of like just a warmth, and I knew that we would gel. But at first I was like, okay, this could be just like a mere friendship, and maybe because sometimes there's a friendship established, but it doesn't have to lead to a professional working relationship. It doesn't always have to be good. But later on, when I started writing some drafts and when I was thinking of like, okay, what's the story I want to tell? What's the grad film I'm writing? And I was just shooting some ideas to Zichan and the others. They had this like infectious enthusiasm, and that's not like the main thing that sold me on it. Obviously, they have a rich portfolio of works, and even if not, then their background. I know they worked on a lot of different projects.
Yeah, you get a sense that they're just you're generally looking for someone hardworking, but someone that's going to take your project into account, and it's a balance. It is a balance.
It's always a balancing act, and I was fortunate enough also to work with these individuals many times since, and you can definitely see. If you gel on set and outside, I mean that's the perfect marriage,
That's it.
So, yeah, of the for the craft and the skill and obviously the brains and the brawn, like everything comes together. So yeah, cool. just talented individuals. We cannot omit, obviously. I'd be remiss to not mention Stanley, of course, Stanley Sean Matthews.
Will you guys be working together? Have you been able to speak with him about this?
Yeah. He.
I think he'd be great for this if you can make it work. I know he's going to be doing. So Stanley Matthews, just for people out there, he's produced 2 films that I've made, Swimming and my grad film, Different Faces. And he's just moved back from. He was working at the Doha Film Institute. Shout out to Stanley, by the way. He's also kind of producing a lot of. He'd be he'll be producing a lot of these podcasts as well, and has been very helpful in this. So, but he's back from Qatar, where he was living, working at the Doha Film Institute. He's back in London and looking to work on not only grad films, but lots of different projects in London. I know he'll be working on Alenka's film, who's an LFS student. He's working on her grad film, and hopefully on yours as well.
Oh, fingers crossed. Yeah. Now we chatted, and well, he told me that he spoke with you, and you seemed very enthusiastic about this project too.
That's an easy sell. Easy sell.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful for that as well. And so we chatted in depth, and I'll be meeting with him soon actually to discuss it. And I'm just very, very happy with the reception of the script. But that's always I still feel that's square one, and we move forward. So
absolutely. And now let's move on. As we kind of wrap up the pod, I'd love to hear about the future and what sorry, just to wrap that up. You'll be shooting in London. That's the idea, right?
Yeah. Well, definitely the UK, and I'm thinking London or Greater London area. That's kind of. Yeah. I don't think I'm going to exceed, those boundaries there.
The budget stays intact by staying close to the area for sure. But I'm sure we can help you in many ways, so, as far as rentals and things like that. So we'll all be in communication, throughout. But I have really good thoughts for your grad film. And now, again, to go to the future and the idea of, what's on the horizon. Imagine, you're done with the grad film. Boom, you're graduated. Do you want to stay in London? Do you want to? What are your goals as a filmmaker? If you were to think big picture, would you? Obviously, I think to write and direct, these like mega films or something like that. But like, what? If I know you are a Miloš Forman lover. Do you envision independent cinema? Do you it's a wide world out there. I think that's the thing sometimes with emerging filmmakers is it can feel like there's no possibility of ever doing anything, but I do think there are lots of possibilities in this industry in big cities like London and throughout the world. So just curious to hear what your take is, future wise.
Well, naturally the pipe dream is always writer director combo, but like I said, I have been fortunate enough to get positions in different roles, and I feel like is everything okay there?
Yep.
So we kind of touched base on this, but in terms of the other like more transferable skills, let's put it that way, I've been, and recently as well, been fortunate enough to now get to DP and gaffer stuff outside of LFS. Mostly low budget stuff, but it's a start, somewhere. And again, building that rapport and stuff like that. So that's short term. Long term, it's still writing and directing. I'd love to make some low budget independent feature. Yeah. But I'm leaving doors open, for different opportunities. I really enjoy cinematography. Yeah. And again, I have to thank shout out to Zichan as well, because in term 4 he was my gaffer. And that was like one of the best crash courses, I think, on lighting that I could have hoped for. And that, again, fostered my love for it. I joined SUL afterwards, or I think it was in that term. So really, again, hearkening back to the whole lighting and camera side of things, that's another love of mine. But long term, the goal is still writing and directing stuff. I have some stuff some materials, some scripts that are kind of shelved. Sure. And the process. Sometimes you just shelve it and you see if you'll come back to it. Yeah, that's right. Maybe not, but
for me, it's very much I got to shorten a feature that I have. But and I know there's people that want to see the work soon, and so I kind of use that as motivation a lot of the time. But real life gets in the way, but you always have in the back of your mind, I think if you really, truly want to write and then direct that thing, that is priority, right? Yeah. As a filmmaker, but it does need time to sit sometimes and think about maybe what is missing from it. And usually it comes, if you really are motivated to do it, those ideas will kind of all matriculate and go into the script, and then, you can bring that to life. But I totally get what you're saying there.
Writer's block is real. So I'm sure many people can empathize. But that's the thing, like writing you can do whenever. But sometimes not sometimes you do have to pay your bills as well. So that's why
cinematography makes sense. Cinematography makes sense as a way of just like continuing forward, being as busy as possible.
Or editing. Yeah, that was my foundation. I come, like I said, like corporate, but before that and back then too, I was editing and doing videography.
Sure.
But so those are kind of short term, hopefully just long term, like fallback options. But like I said 1,000 times now, I really enjoy writing and directing too. But irrespective of the role, I just love being on set and working with people. Especially if you get a good group, and even then, it's just like the atmosphere is great. Yeah. Even when you have tense days, or it can be very stressful and overwhelming. The chats in between and the breaks make it all worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better myself. One other topic I want to discuss is the first person I had on this podcast was Nacho Martin, who you edited his film Max Sierra. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And could you talk just a little bit about that, what that experience was like? I really loved the film. I thought it was just like this really fun action film, had lots of different themes going on, really interesting Spanish, UK production. Could you talk about editing that film and what it was like working with Nacho?
Sure, yeah. So prior to this, I didn't know him personally, and I just responded to an email. It just showed up in the school's Outlook, and I was like, okay, this looks interesting. And I've never really edited. I have edited a lot of things, but never this kind of like high octane action short. And it was very the story and everything felt just right. It was very endearing and felt both like small scale but larger than life, if that makes sense. Like the story was very just fun, lighthearted, and very different. You come across a lot of student short films, or even after Alpha students leave their kind of actual, let's put it right, actual debuts, short film debuts. They kind of tackle very similar subject matter, and it felt fun to do something that's different. Like it was just a completely different project. So it was really fun to edit, very well, like choreographed, fight scenes, and it was just a very charming film, and I really enjoyed the experience. Yeah. So nice. Hopefully to more collaborations with Nacho as well, if he's listening. So
he sounds like he's very busy and just
he's very busy.
A film lover, and
he's a huge cinephile. Yeah.
We were talking about it a little bit, and then he's also, there's a screening of I'm not going to remember the name of the film. He just sent it to me. Let me have a look at the phone.
Is it Blondie?
Blondie.
Yeah.
There's going to be a private screening of it, I think, early in the morning on this Sunday, I think. Will you be there?
Are you going?
Yeah. I'm going to try and make it. Yeah. I'll be there.
Lovely. Cool.
I'll see you there.
Definitely.
Okay, Peter. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the London United Filmmaker podcast. Thank you so much. Really interesting to hear about kind of your journey and what you've been up to recently. And I'd love to have you back on the podcast sometime soon. Maybe either in the lead up, you get so busy leading up to a grad film, maybe not, but maybe after, we can have like a little bit of a discussion about what that experience was like. But we'll be talking a lot about, and I'll be trying to help you out as much as I can with Stanley about making your life easy and getting the film done in a cost effective way as well. So, but just thank you so much again.
No, thank you. This was just a lovely chat, and thank you for having me here.